potřeba cvičit, jako neže
Ne, proč mi to děláš, ty vole? No, protože to nastaví ten PowerPoint.
Windows is CMD does
Já myslím, že asi můžeme začít. Ostatní se ještě prosím? Tak funguje. Takže tak možná, jestli někdo, byste si připravili, že prostředí?
Jako ne, že prostě můžu to udělat přes Google, že nějaká
Tak zatím pomoct,
Jo, no, tak to můžeš normálně se stáhnout ten server, ten, který tam je concurrent, prostě jdeš akorát na JS. By to mělo najít na verzi 6 nebo něco, která to slovo by nejslo. Java je jednoduše, no.
That's a lot of information.
Really? Yeah. You don't really like programming?
Hi. Tak myslím, že se můžu začít. Pokud se mě loupa na Facebook moc aktivně, takže já to trošku
takový čas.
Jdeme nám trošku. Okay, tak sorry. Taky we will. Which is not a problem because we are going to be international. We are going to be very famous because you are going to see a new star in .NET from now on. Okay, my name is Jan. I'm from a company called Scene Group, and you heard about it. We are doing a little bit of outsourcing development for like companies from abroad, usually like UK, German-speaking countries or Scandinavian countries. But that's all about the promo. What we are doing with the HandsOn, we are trying to bring, let's say, more or less regularly some kind of a different kind of presentations. We are doing more like a hands-on experience. For example, the first one was about React Native, so we want to give our like some technical people from Prague, Steam, and Bratislava the experience from some trendy technologies from nowadays, which we also have the possibility to work on our projects. So the first one was about React Native, the way how to do mobile applications together with JavaScript. Second was actually by Mutaki, which was about Flexbox and SVG icons. This time we will have a .NET-like presentation from Jakub ASP NET Core 1.0, and next time we will talk about a little bit about L, because that's kind of hip stuff technology. Okay, that was everything from me, and Jakub, the stage is yours.
Okay, thanks. So welcome. I'm very glad you came here because for me this is a great opportunity to present about technology that I hope will become huge in the ASP NET world and in the .NET world, and it tries to aim not only to the Microsoft people, but also to the Linux people and to the people who develop in OS X, because the new ASP NET Core is now multi-platform. All the code can run on all the major platforms like Linux or OS X. And I think it will be really huge. And now we are at the end of the development lifecycle of this framework, and it should be released at the end of this month. So you are at the right place at the right time to learn this technology. So who am I? Ooh, welcome. So this is how I look on the internet usually. This is my face that looks really terrible on this projector. But I go under the handle NoHBND on the internet. You can follow me on Twitter if you want. I write a bit about development. I also do a lot of scripting and a lot of testing and so on. I'm also Microsoft's most valuable professional for the past few years, which brought me a lot of opportunities and a lot of free stuff, like free Visual Studio, which is also my thing. So, well, if you want to become Microsoft's most valuable professional, just share with the community. Everything that you learn, just share with people, and hopefully you will be one as well. So, okay, this is the little thingy that we will build today. It doesn't look like much. It's just 2 tiles, some little chart, not much of a, well, there is like a grid that you should be able to see, but the projector is terrible. And then we have some alerts. As I said, it doesn't look like much, but it's powered by three different data sources. The first one is an MVC controller. If you did a bit of MVC, it's a classical MVC from the ASP NET Core. Then we have a web API to feed the data to the chart. And then we have a new stuff that's a view component, which is a new concept in the new ASP NET Core. So that's the thing that we will be building. But I also wanted to give you like a quick overview of the whole ASP NET Core framework. But before I go to that, did everybody do the necessary setup that was on the GitHub? Does everything work for you? You did? Did you? No? You have nothing. Okay.
You don't have nothing, so you have to do it right.
That's not a problem. If you go to GitHub CN group, I think. That will work.
Yeah, there will be a public repo.
So on the CN group GitHub, there is like install and startup description of what you need to have on your computer to follow this via coding. It should take you like 10 minutes to set up, so it shouldn't be a problem, I hope. Cool, so while you are setting that up, everybody else, has everything working? Kentucky?
Yeah, it's working.
It's working? Okay, cool. Hi.
Well, look at this. I think, yeah, this is what I have for content. Everything is working, so I will
Screen, please.
And then the other stuff I have, like, by default, because I work with it.
No. No. Something. Něco.
Asi to šňuje trošku.
No. Please work. Duplicate, extend, duplicate.
Nemáš už sebe otevřít Hangouty, prosím tě? Myslím, že máš otevřít Hangouty, kvůli tomu se dvakrát bere audio.
Nemám.
Co si jistý?
Jeden hangout.
Že ona může být někde sekla a bude kypat, když víš.
Teď nezdílíme nebo sdílíme?
Teď. Už je to dobrý. No, ty jsi měl udělat Hangout, takže ono to bralo dvakrát.
Aha, dobře.
Tak jenom stěli jako říkal jsem.
Já se snažím, ale to nefunguje. Duplicate. Znovu sdílíme, sdílíme, sdílíme.
Maybe the same question here.
I will ask.
Well, it's much better. Like, there's no problems and so on. So everything will be done.
Cool. Okay, how's the setup going? Does it work? Yeah. Do you have the prerequisite setup?
Okay, do you have the repository ready? Yeah, like, I mean, like there was some
Česky. Nebo anglicky. Jo, česky. Máte nastavený počítač podle toho setupu, co jsme posílali na repository?
No, mám tam Windowsy. Visual Studio a to ASP NET Core akorát.
Jo. Dobře, to by asi mělo stačit, nebo jestli ještě chcete, tak si můžete stáhnout. Jestli jste viděl ten návod na našem GitHubu, github.com/cnu, ASP NET Core, tak jestli chcete vidět přesně to, co uvidím já, tak si když tak stáhnete Visual Studio Code, protože to nebudeme dělat plný Visual Studio, ale v tom menším. A to je vlastně všechno, co potřebujete, pak ještě Node.js a ten link tam nefunguje, tak stačí vygooglovat Node.js, stáhnout si ten poslední verzi, jestli ještě nemáte. Okay, well, let's continue with the presentation. So, quick overview of the ASP NET Core. Because this is hands-on, there won't be much of a presentation of all the concepts and so on, because we will be learning them as we go. But there are few huge changes in the new framework. Most of all, as I already mentioned, it's multi-platform. So now you can deploy your application on Windows, you can deploy your application on OS X, and you can deploy your application on Linux. In the previous versions of .NET, you could do the same, basically, but you had to rely on Mono, which is like an open source port of .NET. But now you get a full new runtime, which is called .NET Core, that runs natively on the system, or natively in the sense of the .NET, where you compile to the intermediate language, and then you have the runtime machine CLR underneath it. The other big change, which is for me, for example, huge, is that you no longer need to develop inside of Visual Studio. Not that I don't like Visual Studio, but the problem is that with the tooling, everything just relies on the tooling. So if you create a new project, you get like a huge file full of grids, with list of all the files that you have in the project, and then when you merge it on your source control server, you get conflicts, and you don't really know how to solve that yourself because everything was generated by Visual Studio. This is a big problem that probably most of you know. If you ever worked in a team over a project, you sooner or later get a problem with merge conflicts and CSproj. So luckily, these CSproj files are now gone, and we can develop totally outside of Visual Studio, which forces the authors of the tooling to create very lightweight tools that can run multi-platform and so on. Now, the last thing that goes with the multi-platform or cross-platformness of the framework is that you no longer need to host inside of IIS, which is an Internet Information Service server. And so now you get a new server that is extremely lightweight. Basically, what they try to do is like a copy of the Node.js and use all the open source tools that you have available and so on. So doing the new ASP NET Core framework feels more like a Linuxy framework. So the people who already do web development outside of Windows world will probably be more at home at the ASP NET Core than we .NET developers are now. Because everything is JSON. You use your favorite tools, not Power, but NPM, for example. You're smiling. And you get your ground and automation and so on, and it just works that way that you are used to mostly, not like in Visual Studio where you have to right-click everything and set it up and go to the GUI to do the stuff. It's very lightweight and it's, I guess, awesome. Cool. So, well, let's start with some coding. Do you get the setup done? Does it work? Okay. For both of you? Okay, cool. So we will be coding in Visual Studio Code. Who is using some different editor? Is there anyone? You are? What you are using? Notepad? You're using Notepad as well, like hardware version? Okay. So, well, I only know how the stuff goes in VS Code, so if you have Sublime Text or anything else, then I probably won't be able to help you. But ask anyway, so it's fine to get it broken. Good. Make this smaller. This. Okay, maybe before we start, maybe we can generate a new project in Visual Studio to see how it actually looks like if you have the full project, and then we can go on and create it manually through Yeoman. So I'm just using the Visual Studio now to show you how it will look like at your everyday work, because you probably won't be doing the stuff in the Visual Studio Code until it matures. And so normally we would go to .NET Core because we are using the .NET Core RC2, and we can select the application that we want. So we will go with ASP NET Core Web Application. Click OK, as we are normally used to. And now we can select between empty Web API and Web Application. The Web API and Web Application are basically the same. They just have a bit different code in them. But the ASP.NET MVC framework is now the same for both the Web API and the ASP and the Web MVC. So this is running over the same set of libraries. So I will just select the Web Application. You don't need to do anything yet. Does a lot of things on the background. Okay. So does this look familiar to you? Do you develop ASP.NET applications normally? Well, when I first opened it, it looked kind of alien because we get this like solution items, global JSON. What is that? Well, luckily we have web config, but it's really small and it's only used for the IIS. But if we look here, now we have src folder, and then we have some project file in it that's totally different than what we had before. And well, we have references. We had those before, but now we can go here and we can expand everything. And if you recognize this small icon, I don't know if you can see it really. Where's the magnifier glass? On. Okay, so this small icon, that's the NuGet icon. And that's where you get all of your frameworks now. You just go to NuGet, which is a package manager for .NET, and you download all the runtimes, all the frameworks, everything is automatically downloaded from NuGet. So that's something totally different. You don't have to install the .NET framework on the system. You can just download it from the internet. This enables Microsoft to, well, publish small packages, and you can easily get the latest version without compromising your whole system. And it's also portable. So in the end, you can just back up the whole application and put it in the server, and you can have like 20 different versions of the framework on the server locally put in a folder for each application. So no conflicts and so on. Now we have another folder that we didn't have before, and that's www.root or www.root. And this is also kind of different from what we had previously, because previously, if you wanted to serve static content, you could just put it anywhere. And then you just said, OK, don't serve this web config, and please don't serve my configuration files because they have passwords in them. But now you have only the www.root from where you are allowed to serve the content. So everything else is inaccessible from the internet, which you're basically going from blacklisting the content to whitelisting the content, which is a huge step forward. And then we have dependencies that we didn't have before. And some of you probably recognize Bower, which is a package manager for the front end, or for front-end packages. If you want to find it on the internet, well, just Google Bower. I just want to show you so you get familiar with the icon. And a lot of people have strong opinions about using this as the package manager for their front end. But I'm showing this because this is how the Visual Studio currently does it internally, and how you get, and Bower is what you get when you create a new project. And if you want to support in the GUI, then it's also just for Bower. So you can, right-click and go to Manage Bower Packages. The same thing you could do here to manage NuGet packages. So the GUI looks, well, the same, basically. So this is why I'm showing you this. And then we have NPM, which is another package manager, very popular one. It's the Node package manager. Let's go with NPM. We have like millions and millions of packages. Or how many, Mutaki? You don't know? That's weird. So this is the package manager that the Node.js uses. And since Microsoft and the new framework basically tries to reuse as many open source tools, then they, of course, use NPM, which is great because they are not trying to, invent their own thing yet another time. But for this one, you don't get any graphical support. So the max that you can do is open package JSON. And I don't really like how this hides the Node packages folders and so on, or Node modules and Bower RC modules. But, well, maybe they will improve it in the future if they really want to make it true to the system. And then we have the rest of the project. One very important file is the project JSON file. This one is basically what used to be the CS_proj file. This is the main file for the project. And if we look at this in the Explorer at the files, you can see that you also have this xproj file. Can you see it? It doesn't zoom very well. Okay. Magnifier. So this file is here, and it kind of looks like the CS proj file, but it doesn't contain the list of the files. It contains some GUIDs, but not all the files that you have in the project, and it's only needed for Visual Studio. So that's where Visual Studio stores its files, but you can easily take this project, put it on a computer without Visual Studio, edit it, debug it, run it, and so on. So you don't really need this file if you don't develop with Visual Studio, and it's not generated by the other tools as well. Any questions yet?
If you, like you said, copy the stuff, edit it somewhere else without Visual Studio, and you delete the application Xproj, and then take it back without the application Xproj, is it possible to open it with Visual Studio?
Yes, because you can point Visual Studio to project.json. It's basically the scenario when somebody created a project on Mac, gave you the repo, you download it, and then you open it, and then it will generate the Xproj file, which you can either include with the solution or you don't have to. It contains some settings and some stuff like, if I go here and I probably can't do that, but if I click on a right-click on a folder and say hide this from Solution Explorer, it will be saved to a Visual Studio specific file, because the other editors don't really understand hiding from Solution Explorer because they don't have it. Okay, let's see if I missed anything. No, probably not. Maybe, we will see later. So I will close Visual Studio and I won't reopen it again because we will be doing all the stuff in Visual Studio Code. Okay, so we will start by generating the project, and we can do that by a tool called Yeoman, which is quite popular generator of code or scaffolding tool, if you want. Is this happy little fellow we've had, and so on. And if you followed the installation steps, you already saw it as a Yo, which is the shortcut for it. And you also installed a generator, which was generator-ASP NET. And we will use that generator to generate the project for us. So to do that, we can go to some folder where we want to create a project. For me, it's c/proj. So just open your command line and navigate to some folder that you can delete later, for example. And we go with ASP.NET and just press enter. And again, we get this really nice ASCII art of this happy fella. And we can select the project that we want to generate. So we will be doing everything from scratch, basically. So we will select empty web application. And now it prompts to insert names. So I will call my HandsOn, and I guess you should do that as well. And it created the project for me. As you can see, it created the git ignore file, which is for our source version and control system. Then we got program CS, which some of you probably recognize. If you ever developed console application, then you definitely saw program CS. Then we have startup CS, we will look on that later. And then we got the project.json, which is the root or the main file in our project. Basically, to create any ASP NET Core or .NET Core app, we just need the project.json with some very minimal content and some CS file to build it with. Then we got web config. If you don't want to host an IIS, you can delete the web config because it's only there to tell IIS, please don't do anything. Just hand the requests off to the Kestrel server, which is the new lightweight server that we have in ASP NET Core. Then we have Dockerfile, and I think this one is broken because it uses the old commands of the previous version of this framework. But Docker is like a container host where you can deploy your application and use them to make them portable across different operating systems. or computers. Then we have some line settings. We can have look on them later, and readme md that you probably know from GitHub, because that's the basic file that you need to have to create a new repo. So we can try to build this one. So we will go .NET build. Hi, everybody. You're late. Okay, we need to go to the HandsOn first. The document. Neexistuje, jo. Yeah, you're getting. Did you install it? You npm install generator -ASP NET. Yeah.
It was in the beta, yes.
That's you. Anybody else have the same problem?
Okay.
We have no short
Every time I think like people who are just watching for like 2 minutes, they're doing something.
I'm sorry, people who are watching. We are solving some problems here. Má nějaký kanál, na který se na nás můžu zeptat?
Na Facebook.
Please ask on Facebook if you have any problems.
It's a problem, they just start looking.
Okay.
So should
Can you try to install it on here? Fix it as well.
I'm not sure if it's the same problem, but we don't have you in the first place. Minus you.
Very nice. Very installed. Minus G.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe it's like npm installed.
No, just forget all.
And
Minus 3?
no, installed.
Oh, wait a minute, just to see if it's there. You install the we should go to open up the start yes. Yeah, it's just tap in first
Doesn't work?
Yes, this is the so just think about this. This is like we have the so this one I'm going to will install once you install those, then we should install the remote. Then install the generator.
You should open your program and you test it.
This type there. We should close this
Right click on settings, and there's an administrator. Can you paste it with enter? Or no, with right click and it's paste. You can paste it with control. Yeah.
We should click mode.
No, it doesn't work.
We should enable the quick mode.
I have quick mode, it still doesn't work. I don't know.
This one we should move on from the
For the
yeah,
really?
it's interesting.
But everything else is there since you move. Like everything except well, yeah, you can for every place.
Okay.
Which is generated the project for me and like one more guy.
Install Node, choose magic is the node, then install here and then install generator, then install.
Oh, so she didn't have a really
That's
why it's great.
Yeah.
Well, she had the same problem. She had to install the stuff.
Já měl tisíc, a to se ještě někoho nejde, já to používám vůbec, jak to je. Ja, ich
No, I could write your,
We will take 5 more minutes, people on the internet.
Does it work? Does it work?
Yeah, I can send you
I'm sorry.
You just go yo and you select MP web project and name it HandsOn. Same as I have on this project line.
Then we should do the, so you I can't see anything.
I am now.
I think you just.
Abych si to nazval HandsOn. Nevím, co by žádným zpěsem. So, right for most of you? I have this. Okay, let's do a few more steps and then we can look at the other stuff and fix it for the rest of you. So as you could see, I did .NET build, which was, oh, people on the internet, we're back. So I went ahead, I generated the project inside of my HandsOn folder. So if I do ls on it, or dir for the Windows people, you can see that I have the files that I already saw here and described. And now I try to do .NET build, which calls in the runtime and tries to build my project in the current folder, because it sees the project JSON and it knows that it's a project, so it tries to build it. And that failed, so let's do it again. You don't have to, because it will fail again. So it says that the project HandsOn doesn't have a log file. That's not a very obvious message. But what it means is that you didn't do .NET Restore to get all the files, because if you do .NET Restore, it goes to NuGet, resolves all the stuff, downloads the files, and creates a log file, which is a description of what was just done and describes the exact versions that you got from NuGet and so on. And so then when you do .NET Restore again and it sees that you're still using the same versions, it doesn't resolve the whole structure again and doesn't do the restore again. It just takes the current log file and says, okay, nothing happened, so I won't do anything. So we do .NET Restore. And this might take a while for some of you, but for me, it's very fast because I already have everything on the computer. Because when you download a NuGet package now, it goes to your user profile, DNX packages. And this one contains all the packages that you downloaded. So you can go here, delete everything, and try restore again if something gets broken. But it's good if you develop in Metro or in Airplane. Then you can just simply create a new project on the fly, literally. So did you do the .NET Restore? Did anybody get any errors? Is there still anybody who doesn't have anything set up? I'll go through the back.
It's like material.
I think it's fine.
It's like material.
Folder for Windows.
Są programy bądź kierowcy,
Instructions. And it's now creating project. No, there are the project systems that are fast.
So does it work for everybody? Can you do .NET build? You should get something like this. Oh, that was .NET Restore. Now you will see fail it for me, probably, because that's the effect of presenting. Okay. So does it work for everybody? I need some feedback. So if it doesn't work for you, raise your hand. Cool, so it works for everybody. Awesome. Well, we have the project, so now we can try to start it. That will be very surprising. We go .NET run. And you should see that you have hosting environment production, and it's listening on the local host 5000. So try to navigate there. What do you get? Hello world? Everybody gets hello world? Yay or no?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So, well, this probably is serving some static content like an index file or something, right? So let's just open our project in VS Code. Yeah, we can just close this one and just go with code on the local folder. So now you might get this nice message which tells you, oh, you opened ASP NET project, and you might want to build it and debug it. So should I automatically download it for you and set it up? And I say yes, of course. So hopefully it will do something. It's magic, and we will get to build a project. So maybe we can try it. We can press Ctrl-Shift-B, or on Mac that would be Command-Shift-B, I guess. And it should build the project for you the same way as you do .NET build. Is anybody lost? No? You're lost?
Yeah. Just for the build, how can I do it in Visual Code?
Ctrl-Shift-B or Command-Shift-B, I think. Doesn't work?
showed me more options and.
Okay. Well, you can go here to the bug menu, and you can, for example, start it from here. But I don't really know what the command is on Mac, because I always do it like this. Always go here .NET and build if I want to build it. Okay, so let's see where the hello world is coming from. So we can go here to the files. We can go for search, and we can go with hello world. And well, I will try to make it a bit bigger. Now we can see that we have some configuration and that we have some weird code. Maybe for us it's just a normal lambda or async lambda, where we are doing context response, write async, hello world. And this is what is called middleware in the ASP NET Core. Because now we have the concept, or we always had a concept of a pipeline that processes the request, but now we get to configure everything ourselves, or we can configure everything ourselves in the pipeline. I had some slide on it, if I will be able to find it. So let's make this smaller, because I don't want to start it again, because it always messes up my, my screen. So I will just show it here. Hopefully you can read it. So we have this pipeline where we have pieces of middleware, which is just a pieces of code that you can run and act on some request. So this would be, for example, an authentication middleware that looks at the request that's incoming, checks if you are authorized to do something or access some resource, and if it does not, if you do not, then it handles the request and just sends back like access denied page or something like that. Then behind this middleware in the pipeline, because this is the pipeline and this is the request that goes in and then returns back through the pipeline, you have, for example, the MVC framework, which is now also implemented as middleware. And then you, for example, can serve default files like the index HTML if you go directly to the URL, which we will do in a few moments. And then you can serve static content like JavaScript files, or the index HTML if you go directly to the URL that is /index HTML. Then you will trigger this middleware. But you get to set up all of this by yourself. So you can choose, no, I don't want MVC, and I don't want authentication. I don't even want the default files. And then you get like extremely lightweight pipeline that can process a lot of requests per second. But if you want all that stuff, and if you want like developer messages and stuff that filters here and stuff that extracts some data from each request and logs what's happening, you can do that. But on the other hand, you can just do the static serving on the server and have like super fast, super lightweight server that you can run 200 times on the same machine. Now we can create a new piece of middleware and put it in the pipeline, or try to put it in the pipeline. So let's just duplicate the code, add some new line after the hello world, and try to run our application again. So we can go here, we can go .NET run. You don't have to do the build every time because it builds automatically. So it started up. Now we can go to our local host, and we should see hello world twice, right? Yay? No? Yes. Well, we don't, because the thing with the invocation that we do is that the app run creates the middleware, but it also handles the request. So if you look here, it just goes here, and then it never calls the next method. So it just doesn't hands off the request to the next middleware in the pipeline. It just handles it itself and returns the request. So we need to use another method, and that method is use. And it takes a context, and it also takes the next item in the pipeline, which we can invoke. And we, of course, should await this call. We don't have to do that. And now, hopefully, it should work. If we restart the application, okay, I should show the code for more time, right? Did you copy the changes, or you don't want to copy the changes? Okay, let me just do this, and I will delete it afterwards.
Question. What does the await method exactly do? Await.
Okay, well, that's not a method. It's like a syntax sugar, and it's like for a whole new talk. But basically, we have this concept of futures that you know from JavaScript. Yeah, like promises. That's what you call it. And so you have a task that is the promise that you get back, and the await and async is, you can see the async here. This async says you can use the await in this method, and instead of returning the promise, you will directly return the data. So this is a concept that's in .NET that enables you to write code that looks like it's executed in one line, like in serial, not in parallel, or no, I mean synchronously. So you write synchronous code that acts asynchronously. So here you would do something like response write async, and then you would create a callback in which you would do the next invoke. So instead you replace it with the await, and it will automatically postpone the execution until this is done, and then it will go to the next line.
I think we got the same method coming up on PS7 with JavaScript. So I think it's probably the same thing.
Basically, it helps you to, you know, do the asynchronous programming without all the ugly putting functions inside of each other and doing the callbacks. So let's see if that works. Did I restart the app? Probably didn't.
Do you have any watchers or something? So,
Watchers?
like from the run, watches your changes and builds implementing.
There are some, and if you're developing directly in Visual Studio, you can just host in IIS without debugging, and it automatically rebuilds the whole application as you edit it. And you can set up the watchers, and you can set up like a browser link and so on. But well, it's kind of magic. Sometimes it doesn't work. And yeah, I just do it explicitly during this course because I don't want to rely on a tool to do it on the background. Plus, sometimes I just want to wait and rebuild it and then refresh it to show the change. So now we got the hello world twice because we correctly handed off the response or the request to the next middleware in the pipeline. Well, this is all nice, but you know, hello world, writing hello world to HTML pages is not very useful. So we can just delete this. And well, let's see what happens if you just, you know, don't have any middleware in the pipeline. And then we get nothing, absolutely nothing. It doesn't even return an error message. It doesn't give you anything. It's just, that's how lightweight the runtime is, that it by itself, it doesn't know how to do anything. You have to configure and add everything to the pipeline. So let's try to do some like index HTML at least. So we can go to our root because that's where the static content is coming from. And we can add a new file, call it index.html, right? Now we can use the awesome expansions provided by Emmet to get the whole boilerplate. You just do exclamation mark and tab. Exclamation mark, and then you press tab. to get all the stuff that you need to have the web page. And well, title, I don't know, our awesome app. And the body will be, we are here, right? So as I said, by default, the app, the pipeline, it doesn't do anything. So even now we have index.html, and by convention, this would probably be served by default, but it's not. So we need to instruct the application in the startup in the configure method, and we need to add the middleware to do this stuff. So we will do app use static files. This is like the most basic stuff that when you request for HTML or JS that you will get back. If you have it in the pipeline, then don't remove it, because then you will have like MVC working, you will have your authentication working, but you will get 404 at every static content. And it's kind of confusing if you're used by everything working by default. And so to do this, we need to include extra package, because by default, this is not even included in the framework. So you can really deploy just the pipeline without anything. So we need to include using Microsoft ASP NET Core static files, I think. And we need to install this package. And we will do that by going to project.json, to the dependencies. And we will paste it here in the JSON file. Hopefully we will get the IntelliSense. If you don't get it, if it doesn't trigger for you, then press Control space or Command space on Mac. And you should get the pop-up with the IntelliSense. Now you can just save it. And sometimes it pops up and Visual Studio Code recognizes that you added something and tells you, oh, you don't have a restored packages. So probably for you it will work, but I already have all my packages in the cache, so I'm fine. For me,
you don't have a package, so like a package manager, which you can just run from the command, type the name of the package, and you can install it.
Yeah, that's what the .NET Restore does. So
because I don't know which version, I just want to do the latest version of the latest stable version. I don't know what's the.
Well, if you want to go with the latest stable version, then you just do this.
Okay, that's convenient.
You can use all the SAM version for the npm and so on with all the carrots and stuff. With everything, it's the same stuff. But also, on the other hand, well, you have the project log JSON, and you can log that log file. So you will then deploy with the same version all the time, even if you said, I just don't care, I want the latest version. So .NET Restore. So if you do the .NET Restore, did you get the packages? Did you get any errors? You did? It says installed. Because it probably downloaded the use static files package and put it in your package repo on your computer. Well, let's try do .NET Restore and then do .NET Run to see if it runs for you. And if it doesn't, then just raise your hand and I will have a look. Still nothing. Then you can navigate to index.html and you should be getting the content that we added. You have to go to the /index.html because we are only serving static files, but it doesn't know anything about index being the default file at the moment. Works for everybody?
Maybe if somebody else is like has it already, can you help maybe the other guys because okay. Anybody else having troubles?
No, it works for anybody else.
My PC is crashing, so I can do it, but I just.
Next time I will take an extra and I will lend it to you. Okay, I'll buy a new one. That's the cheaper option for me. Jaký máme čas? Dobrý, jsme tak v první desetině. Okay, well, now we can serve the static files, and well, we can also use default files middleware. We need to speed up a bit because we have a lot to cover. So this piece of middleware, it enables you, if you go directly to the root of the app, you will get the index HTML because that's basically how everything acts on the internet.
Is this going through IIS or through that Kestrel?
This one is just the Kestrel because we don't host it in IIS. That was the question, if it goes through IIS or Kestrel? Yeah. Okay, well, no, it's fine. I just wanted to explain something and I want everybody to listen. So we have two servers. We have the IIS, which is the full IIS, and then we have the Kestrel, which is basically just the process that hosts this. And if you host it in IIS, then all the stuff that IIS does is that it starts up Kestrel or the DNX runtime with the Kestrel inside of it, and it hands off all the requests. Yeah. So it only manages the process, but it doesn't do any of the serving or anything else. Everything is handled inside of the Kestrel all the time.
Do you know why here is the process? Why someone is running through ES and then Kestrel or not Kestrel only?
Because it always runs in a Kestrel server. They're just using IIS because it's a very mature platform and a lot of the administrators know it, and it manages the process. It has all the refreshing of the memory. If your process gets too high on memory, you have the management, you have GPO, you have everything around it. So basically now, instead of just running the ASP NET or the .NET framework inside, they just start a new process and manage that. And that's the Kestrel that we are running here. So now if the application breaks inside for some reason, like you have null reference exception somewhere, it just kills the process and it doesn't serve anymore. But if you have it in IIS, it sees that it failed and tries to restart the application. So that's why you use it for. Go on.
Because I'm great. So ASP.NET is it the evolution of ASP.NET MVC5 before? Is it only used for web application, or is it like now the de facto framework to build .NET applications? Like you can build command line applications with it?
Well, it's not the de facto yet. It's not even released yet. It will be released, I think, at the end of this month or maybe at the end of the next month. I'm not really sure. But yes, at first it was made just for ASP NET applications, but then it evolved. And basically what we are writing here is a console application that hosts web host. So you're running a console application, and inside of that console application, you are running the web. So yeah, in the future, that will be the basic platform. That will be the from scratch written for CLR and core, .NET framework. Any other questions? No? Okay. So, well, now we can serve index HTML. We're getting forward, but we wanted to do some MVC, so we need to set that up. And again, we will do a piece of middleware. We will just go here and we will say app.use MVC. Easy as that, but you need a package for that. So you need using, did you get it? You need to using Microsoft ASP NET Core and surprisingly MVC. Hello? So we added this line and we added this line on the top. And now we will go to project JSON. And we will again install the package, the NuGet package. For this one, same version. Does anybody follow, or am I going too fast? Okay. So in the startup CS, we added this piece of middleware on the top. So it's app.useMVC. And then we added this using, which says import all the types in this namespace, so we can directly say use MVC. Sorry, I'm not sure if it's even needed. Let me just build it.
Yeah, no, it's really
Compilation failed because I'm still running. And inside of the project JSON, we are again including this last line, ASP NET Core MVC.
So we should run restore again, right?
Yes, if you don't have the package, which you probably don't, then you should go with .NET Restore to get all the packages from the internet. Basically, you can just automate it in your command line and then just do .NET Restore dash or whatever you have, semicolon, sorry, and .NET Run. Or you can just, if you knew the command line, you could just run it inside of Visual Studio Code, which is much better experience and you don't need to switch all the time. But it works. So now it should build for everybody. How's it build? Okay. And well, now we can start doing some actual MVC. So for that, we need a few folders, or we don't really need them, but that's how the project is usually organized. We have controllers. Then we will have views. I'm sorry, I should have put that outside. It's kind of hard to see the structure in the Visual Studio Code. Can you see that? This is views, and we need view models. That will take our data for the views. And one thing that I forgot inside of this, instead of using use MVC, because that way we would need to configure the routes, but we don't need that for our small project. We are pretty happy with the default route, which is just home is the default controller, index is the default action, and everything else follows the / name of the controller / name of the action pattern. So for that, we can just go with use MVC with default route. And we also need to register the MVC as a service, which registers it with an IOC container. that's provided by the framework. So we will go with services.add MVC. You probably noticed that we can also do add MVC core if we just require the very basic stuff, but we will go with add MVC because for us it's bulletproof. Are you done? Still follow?
When I try to run the app, it crashes.
It crashes and you don't know why?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So let's add some tooling so we can see it better. So
Does it work?
no, but it always crashes for everybody. So that's how it works. So as I said, we have a dependency injection and an IOC container. Is there anybody who doesn't know what IOC and dependency injection is? Don't worry, I won't judge you. Just raise your hand so I can explain it. Explain it. Okay. So, well, an IOC container is some like piece of program where you can put like types and instances of classes, for example, or just register types and just say, well, I want to have an iLogger interface and I want some implementation for it. So we will request from some other class an iLogger. And when that's made, then please provide a logger for SQL database. So for example, we would have like a class like this one, which would require few dependencies. The one dependency should be in the shape of a circle, the other one in the shape of a triangle, and the second one and the third one in a shape of a star. So for us, this would be, for example, like a logger and like authorization service or image service or whatever. And
We have a pizza for everybody here, so just whenever you decide, maybe 5-minute break to grab a pizza, slice pizza to there.
okay, I will just finish explaining this dependency injection. And so for us, this has a lot of upsides, because if you see this little thingy here, that would be the interface that we implement or that we say that the class implements. So an iLogger will be an interface that has just a log method on it, and it takes a message or string message. And so then our application shouldn't really care which iLogger it gets or which implementation of it. So we can put inside some default logger that doesn't do anything. And our application inside our class, this one, will just call log. And here's the message. But we don't do anything because we don't want to log. But on the other hand, you know, our boss comes and say, please log to files, SQL server, and send every logged message into my email. So you don't want to go to every class and just say, if this option is set, then do this, and if this option is set, then do this, and log, and then you have this much of logging logic in every class. No, you just provide an implementation of iLogger that does all that, or you provide like 10 different implementations, and then you just connect them together. So that's why it's called IOC, which stands for inversion of control, that the actual consumer class, this one, doesn't really know and doesn't really care about the shapes of those things, or it cares only about the shapes. It doesn't care about the implementation. So you can give it like fake implementation during testing. It still has the same shape. It would be some mock implementation. And then you just check, did it call the log once or did it call the log 20 times? And so on. So it's great for unit testing and for other testing, and also for having less configuration or having the configuration only in one place. Okay.
Where is defined like which logger will be used? Is it a config file or?
It depends on how you want to build the application. In our project, we would register the iLogger here.
So it depends here which you register here.
Yes, but we could go like, if we are in development, then just provide a logger that logs everything and puts it in a file, because we don't mind if it runs slow. But in the production, we can just configure the logger to go just to some, database, or if it fails, nothing happens. If it fails in development, we want to know, and so on. So, and that's not the only thing. If we register like this circle and triangle and star, then it can happen then that this square requires a star and triangle. And so then we can take this piece and put it inside, and take this piece and put it inside as well. And that way we don't really need to care about how the object is built, because the container does that for us. And so we just create objects or classes that have like boundaries given by the interfaces. Maybe we can talk about that later, because there's probably better example than I can invent on the place. But there is really great book about this one, which is called DI in .NET by Mark Zaman. No, not this one.
ASP.NET is using some such library for the dependency injection, or is this some its own?
I think it has like a minimal implementation inside of it of the IOC container, where you can just go to 3 different lifetimes of the objects. But with this, and as well with any other service or stuff that it provides, you can replace it with your preferred dependency injection container. So you can use like Castle Windsor easily, or Unity, and so on. So this is just like very small, simple stuff, which you can replace with enterprise-grade dependency injection if there is things like that. If you want to learn more, this book is great, and the guy also did a course on Pluralsight, and he has a lot of different great courses. His name is Mark Zaman, and well, awesome developer. Cool. So that would be the dependency injection. So now we need to also register this service. And what we can do if we do dependency injection, what we usually do is that we request the dependency in the constructor of the class. So as Mutaki said, it fails for him and he doesn't know why. So we would probably want to add some piece of middleware that says, okay, if this fails, show the message, or show like an error page, because that's the usual experience that we get in MVC. And for that, we need to do app.use, I think it's developer exception page. P. B. And we again need to include a new package, which is using Microsoft ASP NET Core diagnostics. Pizza. Oh, I forgot about the pizza.
5 minutes is alright. We don't have that much time, so we will need to continue. So as much pizza as you can. You can have a refill anytime, but in 5 minutes you'll continue.
Už jsme tady takovou dobu.
seeing what that is.
Well, 2 minutes and we continue.
In case you want to reveal access to your table, that's why we are here. So we just say the name of the mixer, and you will reveal like.
Good service.
Yeah.
So what should I do?
You should do this in your configure services class method. Because that's how C# works. That's the convention.
So that's something like everywhere in ASP. Do you think it's the performance benefit is for programs with summary tracing teams and conferences?
Okay, can you repeat, please?
Do you think asynchronous approach in ASP.NET is worth the most potential programs with concurrency and synchronization? Or do you encounter some strange behavior because of this?
No, yeah.
Stuff?
Well, The async stuff is not about concurrency, basically, or it is sometimes. But the main reason why they introduced this is that you can use as little threads to do as much of work as you can. So, well, you have all the problems with doing stuff concurrently and in different threads still apply, but I never like run into them to get like strange behavior where I don't expect it. So if you don't write in the same data, which you normally don't, because for every request, everything is created as a new and it gets its own instance. So if you don't share the stuff.
So it's basically running synchronously, only it's able to park it when it's awaiting something, or?
Well, you have two concepts. You have synchronous and asynchronous programming. So with the synchronous, you get one thread and you just do your work.
Yeah.
And when you are done with the work, you either release the thread or you hand it to somebody else, but you do your whole work. And in the middle, you can like pause or wait for I/O if you call to SQL Server, and you're just holding up the thread and you're just waiting. It's parked somewhere, put somewhere in place. But if you do it asynchronously, then you have one thread and you do part of your work. Then you reach a point where you, for example, need to communicate with SQL Server, which is an I/O operation that you don't need to process because you just, send the request and wait for the request to happen. So at this moment, your memory is parked somewhere, and another work can run on the same thread. So you are reusing the thread to schedule more work on it. So it's not waiting, and you don't need to recreate it.
For reusing threads, but not for nothing in the HTTP request is going in parallel.
It depends on how you program it. If you add parallel stuff in, then you can have stuff
sure, but
in parallel.
This approach what's introduced.
It should reduce the load on your server, so you don't have to create new threads for every new request. So you don't run out of threads, you don't have that much memory, and you don't have the overload of creating the thread every time.
This doesn't necessarily mean that you're running like multiple threads per one HTTP request.
No.
I see.
No.
Yeah, that was why I was asking if it's not introducing some concurrency problems, because I don't it will generate multiple threads. So
Okay, there are two great books on this topic. I will find them and I will send them to you. This is one of them. The other one is like Async Cookbook, I think. Yeah, this is the one. And it has great introduction to this topic on like first 100 pages, which clears up this confusion between multi or parallel programming and asynchronous programming and so on. So it's great read. Okay, where did we stop?
So which one is in the ASP NET what typically it's parallel or asynchronous?
In the ASP NET, in this one we're using the asynchronous approach where you.
Not parallel, I see that. Yeah.
It runs in parallel, but you run different requests in parallel.
Yeah.
So for every request, you get its own thread, or you post the request and then another request is scheduled. So it's kind of a combination of both.
Yeah.
Okay, so can we continue? So, well, the problem that Mutaki had was that he didn't add this services at MVC in the configure services, I think. But it's really nice if you get errors to actually be able to see what's happening. So you just don't get return code 500 internal server error. Instead, you get a message that tells you what's happening, and you get it in the browser and not in some console. So to do that, we can use this use developer exception page, which is a piece of middleware again, and we need to include ASP NET Core diagnostics namespace, and we need to install the same package in the project JSON. But there's another thing that I did in the meantime, and that's requesting from the IOC container the service that's called iHosting environment, and it implements iHosting environment interface. And so we can just save the instance for later. And what this enables us to do is to check in which environment we are running. Because at this moment, we want to only show the exception page if we are in development, because it could result in, leaking details of the internal program to the users or to hackers, so they could see your whole code stack and the data that you have and that you pass around and so on. So you don't really want to do this in production. But at this moment, if we again run the project, you can see that we are running in production. So we need to configure this somehow to run in development. And we can do that by configuring the runtime. We have multiple options how to configure the runtime, either through JSON or through XML files if we want. But another option is to do it through environment variables, which is very useful if you have like one server for production, and then you have like your development station, then you have a staging, then you just set the local environment variables. And then every application that will be deployed there will run as a production application. So you don't need to configure the files and so on. So to do this, we can set its ASP NET Core and environment. Very easy to remember and spell, but I hope I did it correctly. And that would be development. Sorry, not the right thing for me. If you are on a command line, then do this, do set. I'm in PowerShell, so I will need to do $env. Oh, and I need to put it in quotes. You don't put it in quotes in the command line. And on OS X, well, I don't know. Sorry. And now we are running in development configuration. So this is kind of different way of doing the same thing in the ASP.NET 4. That would be going to web config, the root web config that you have somewhere in your GAC, I think, and configuring it there for the whole machine. So here we can do this through the environment variables, and we can configure a lot of different stuff through them. Did you get this part? Were you be able to follow it and finish it up? Okay. Everybody? Good? Okay. So now if you run your application, what happens? Do you get the same page as I do?
Yes.
You should. Right? Because we don't have any controller in place and we don't have any action on it. So we need to create that next. And so we go to controllers and you create a new file. And you call that home controller. Yes, because it's a C# class.
That folder which is created, right?
Yeah, I created it in some of the previous steps. It's called controllers with S on the end. So I call my namespace HandsOn because I called the project HandsOn. So I want to do HandsOn controllers. It doesn't matter much, but you should keep the same name of the namespace in the whole project. Otherwise, you need to do usings and so on because your code is not in the same namespace. And it will be a public class home controller. Yes, we need to do the using of not this one. Of ASP NET Core MVC.
The waste means like extenders.
Which one? This one?
Yes.
Yes, it inherits from a base class called controller, which is the class from which you inherit for both the MVC and the web API now. Before it was web API controller because we had two different stacks of libraries, because basically the web API should be able to self-host it because it was newer, and the normal ASP.NET was relying on IIS for hosting. So that's why they basically created two of the same frameworks to do one thing with the same names for the stuff, but the one could be hosted outside of IIS. So, and now we don't host in IIS anymore, so all the stuff just got merged back together and everything has the same names still. So now we can just go to controller and a base class. And now we need some action on it because this will only get us to the /home, but we need like /home/index. That's what's in the default route. And so we create a method where we can handle the content and so on. So we can start by just returning a string, and we call this index, because that's how it's called by the convention, and that's where the default route goes. And we can just return, well, ABC. Let's see if it serves the content now. This is me. Oh, I need to rebuild, right. Still doing the same thing for you? Gives you an error, Budaki?
Probably just syntax stuff.
Okay.
I'm using Sublime, so.
Okay. You can just copy my code if you want. If you just go here, co-chair IO YGC, what? You see it? We just create a new link for you.
Thanks. Can you zoom like with the first?
That would be difficult.
Yeah, now it's just. You see the clicking?
I'm sorry. YGCJW. No, this one. So
Is it empty on purpose or?
yeah, it's empty. Okay, you can also find it on bit.do ASP NET Core HandsOn if you want. If anybody else wants it. So, well, here you go. You see it? Okay, just don't delete it because you can.
Right.
Is anybody else using this? No? No? You just typed it yourself. That's cool. By the way, do you get like the colors in your Visual Studio Code?
I didn't do the using thing.
Okay.
Not used to.
Are you getting the highlighting in your Visual Studio Code? Everybody? Yeah? No? You do? Cool. So if you start your project, you get the message, the ABC message. Yeah, can we go on? Mutaki?
So then,
So serving just a string from our controller is not that much different from just, putting it there in the middleware. But this is not really what we want to do. We want to do the MVC where we have the model, the view, and the controller. So here we can just go with the convention and return an action result, which enables us to do return view, which will take a piece of HTML or CS and HTML in our case, and return the actual view to the caller. And we can also provide some view model here, which will provide the data for the view. So first, let's create the view. We can go to views, and by convention, it should go inside of the home folder, because that's how our controller is called, without the controller at the end. And then we will take our index, and we will move it inside of here, and we will rename it to capital I index to follow the naming correctly, and CS HTML.
which stands for?
It stands for C# HTML, because you can use special syntax inside of it.
That Razor started to go well.
Yeah, that's Razor. Okay, so now you should have your view inside of views, home, index, CS HTML. And if we go back to the code and we restart the project, ooh. No, okay. Oh, I didn't save it. Make sure you save all the files. Okay, now we can see the same content as we did before because we copied the index CS_HTML. And so now we can create some view model for it because we wanted the tiles with the data and so on. So we can specify that we want model as in normal MVC, as we always do, and we will say that it's placed in HandsOn view models index view model. And on this view model, we will have the temperature, if you remember how the actual application should have looked like. Just this one, so we wanted to power this via MVC. And so we need this, basically. So we need temperature, and then we need a description for the temperature. So here we can expand, and we can say that this will be model, this time with capital M, dot current value, and same thing for description. Okay. Everybody still follows?
Yes.
Okay, let's add a new file for the view model. We call it.
Can you slow down, please?
Okay.
So actually, you can create put the views on namespaces too.
Views in namespaces.
Yeah, because what's up with that? I think interested.
This one. Sorry, that didn't went well.
The this kind of annotation interface?
Index. So here we have an object that we specify that will be the view model for the web page, which will hold the data. And then we can use this, the instance that we will be provided from the controller. So here.
So this is a variable, so it's like affecting the variable.
Yeah, this is like a piece of a C# code that says variable model, which is the standard where the model is put. And on it, you access the property called current temperature and description. But maybe, you know, we are running out of time, I guess, and we didn't achieve much. So let's look at some other properties of this, so we don't spend time doing just the classical MVC and so on. So let's just say, well, this one is fine, this one is fine. Well, let's just say that we, you know, start with the header that we already have, so we can use some tag helpers. So here we have like a small, if you can see it, a logo, which is a thermometer. And so I got this picture from the internet. So let's just, you know, try to add it to our header. But maybe before that, we can, no, let's do it this way. So we can include some pictures. So let's go to Google, look for thermometer. And we can, you know, choose this one, which is different from what I already have. Download it, I guess. And I put it in /proj. What are you doing? So hands-on, we go to www.root, create a new folder, call it img. This one is SVG. No, I don't want that. It would probably work, but I'm not sure. So let's go with this one. That's really big. So let's save this one instead. And call it logo, for example. And now we can include this picture here. And just go with src. src equals, the tilde stands for the www.root, so we just go with img logo.png. We close the img tag, I think. No, let's go to our local host. What happened? Okay, it can't find the view model, so just delete this line, forget all about that stuff. And we get this huge, absolutely huge thermometer. But, well.
Which is the logo, right?
Sorry?
Which is the logo.
Yeah, that's the logo. That's really nice logo that we have. But, well, let's say we are in a development and we already have a production application. And now we want to change the logo because this was our development logo. And now if you know at least a bit how browsers work and how they optimize the content, they download the logo for you if you request it, and then it stays in a cache somewhere. Same goes for CSS files a lot of the time and so on. And so to change this logo in our app, we would need to go here, for example, and just go with logo_1 to force the browser to reload this application. But now we have like a built-in way to do this through tag helpers, which is like a new concept in the ASP.NET, and we can just say ASP.append version is true. So this should generate the image with GUID or some kind of version behind it. I think it's some hash of the content. So then when we replace the logo with different image, it will automatically change the version. The browser won't realize it's the same thing and will just download it again. It won't work now because you need to include ASP.NET helpers, but we will make that work in a second. And this is also very useful for like serving JavaScript from your files and so on, because you just invalidate the file in the client. And if you have more files, then you don't run into the problem that one is loaded and the other one is loaded with different version and so on. And those tag helpers are a quite powerful thing, because you can, one, do like custom attributes like this one with ASP append version that will be processed to change the content of the SRC. And you can do different, like an absolutely new tags like environment, which enables you to switch between stuff of based on what environment you are into. So for example, if you are creating a production application, you want to take your JavaScript from CDN for the same reason as you do with the pictures, because the browser caches the content. And so if you get your Bootstrap, JavaScript and Bootstrap CSS from CDN, which is Content Delivery Network, and then there is a chance that the CSS and the JavaScript will already be cached in the browser of the user, which for him seems like your application loaded really quickly, because you don't need to download all the stuff. And if many pages uses the same delivery network as your application, then the chance of having the content already cached in the browser is bigger. So that's what you want to do in the production. And another thing that you want to do with JavaScript and CSS in production is to minify them, is to make them as small as possible, while still be understandable by the browser, but not by person, because we need long names. Browser doesn't, so you can just rename everything to A, B, C, and so on, and it still compiles. And that's what you do in production. But if you develop like that, then you don't really want the minified JavaScript, and you don't want to go to your web page every time and just say, okay, this won't be minified, this will be minified, and so on. So you can just wrap your import in the environment tag. And use names to specify for which environment it will work. You probably don't need to follow me now, because I will be just going through the stuff, because I think we're running out of time almost, aren't we?
For 40 minutes.
Okay, well, there is so much stuff to cover, so maybe we can go through this and then we will see. So here I would, include my real script, the non-minified versions. So let's just go with comment for non-minified. And in the production, we would want to include the files from the CDN, from the Content Delivery Network. But what if that is not available? So what do we do now? Should we just load it from the local file? And that's usually what we want to do. We want to check first the load from the CDN to have the chance that the content is already in the cache. And if it's not available, we want to run a piece of code or piece of test to check if it's already loaded, and if it's not, then we want to do another load from the local files of the minified version. And normally if we include the stuff, for example, a script, then we just do src and then we point to the version. So we could do like / js/jquery.js. And import this. We of course want the minified version because we are in production. But where's the CDN, right? So we want to use another helper from the tag helpers. And so here we would specify the link to the CDN, which you can easily find on the internet. Just go with jQuery and CDN. And so let's go with the minified version of the 3.0. We can put it in here. And it just has some integrity check and so on. And here you can see that it goes to the internet and downloads the file from the CDN. And when browser sees that, it checks, is this already cached or not? And so now we want the check for the local, so we use another helper, and we will do ASP.src fallback. And we can specify that our script is in /js/jQuery.js. This way we can switch automatically to the fallback, and then we need some tests. So for jQuery, that would be ASP, I think it's fallback test or test fallback, not really sure. And we would run some action like window jQuery. Yeah.
Quick question for the logo, when we added the special tag ASP NET version,
Mm-hmm.
check the kind of generated code, and it seems that in my version don't append anything. Is it like normal?
No, it doesn't, because we didn't include the tag helpers yet, so it doesn't activate, and your browser just ignores what's happening. So you're just getting the normal version. So, well, in our configuration, we want to do this to serve the right content for the right environment. So here we can, yeah. Does everybody get this, why we should do that?
So this will generate some JavaScript which will check reloads and
It will call this method. Yeah, I think it will generate some JavaScript to check.
yeah.
So instead of you doing it and putting it like the long queries that you probably already saw, you can just do this simple check and just put it in there. There are no more bundles as they were in the ASP.NET before. Everything is done in more HTML way instead of using helpers for everything. And well, to include the helpers, we need to create a new file inside of the views. And we call it _view imports .cshtml. And then it goes with add tag helper. It's not helpers, it's helper, because if you do add tag helpers, it doesn't do anything. And then you just say, I want to include every tag helper that you can find in the assembly that I will specify next. And the assembly is Microsoft.asp. It's _view import CSHTML. It's inside of the view folder directly. I will just check. Oh, that thing is called, okay, it's ASP NET Core.mvc, obviously, and tag helpers. Now here it's with the plural. And we, again, need a package for this. So project JSON. Save that, and that should hopefully work. So let's restart the app and see if that works.
Same version as the other ones?
Yeah, 100 RC2.
This one you put S, right?
I'm sorry?
This one, this helper with the S tag helper.
Yes, tag helpers. Thank you for the water, sir. Okay, didn't activate. I had to do something wrong. ASP NET Core, ASP NET Core. Oh, ASP apparent version. So let's check with the index again. ASP append version set to true. That's the same as in my code. Like net restore.
Telling me with some kind of dependencies and you cannot resolve
Tells you what?
the dependency. You take out first, cannot be resolved.
When you do .NET restore.
I can do it. So, same version 1.0 SC200, right?
Yeah, that should be it. Okay, I had to do hard refresh. So now you probably can't see, but I will try to zoom it out. You can see that my logo PNG has this nice version behind it. So if I now replace the image, it will generate a different checksum, and it will append a different version to the tag, and so it will bust the cache of the browser. Which, if you ask me, is pretty awesome to have.
Yeah, right now the
Works?
I have the hash with the logo. Your
Okay, well, I'll probably just remove the logo so we don't have to style it and we don't have to do the rest of the stuff with it. So let's just go back to the clean version. And we can probably look at the one thing that you're probably not familiar with, that's the view components. Because as I said, this one is the view component. And it's like a reusable component that you can take and put in different places. It's basically like a mini controller that has only one action. In the previous version of ASP NET, you didn't have this. You had to choose between a partial view, which is like really dumb view that you can render from some template, and doing a child controller action where you have like full-blown controller with just one method on it. And you have to come up with a name for it, and then you have to call it and render it. So you don't have that anymore. Now you only have partial view and the view component. I think it's very similar to view components or directives in Angular.
components now are kind of, you can do them in every like major way.
Yeah, that's probably where it's taken from, because this framework is trying to be like the cool kid. Everything is in JSON and everything is, taken from other places, and it's like Node and so on. Well, I had this like example for awesome view component, which you can't really see. Oh, I broke everything. So we're not sharing anymore?
Oh, that's okay. Just
No.
it's okay. Go ahead.
It doesn't work. I wanted you to see the kitten. It's probably not worth it. Oh, here it is. So if you have your super awesome page about great stuff at cool domain, then you probably want to have like kittens of the day view component on the start, and you need to do some really hardcore processing to do this. So like, 20 different servers with 200 cores and so on. So that's exactly what you need the view component for, to do the calculation on behind and then present it to the users. And the kittens are really cool. See, I told you it's worth it. So to create the view component, it's basically like a mini controller, as I said, but we need a different folder. Or actually we don't, because there's like 3 ways of look up the view component. Either you call it something view component, or you derive from view component base class. So the same way we are deriving here from the controller base class, we would derive from view component base class. Or we have attribute that's called view component, surprisingly, that you can apply on the class. So, well, in the end, it would look like this if you don't know what attribute is. So view component probably without the attribute, because that's added by convention. And so you can basically make any class in a view component, but I think it's nice to follow some convention. So we can just go here and add a new folder called components. There is a bit of difference or a bit of inconsistency in the framework, because sometimes they call it components, sometimes they call it view components. So now this name of the folder doesn't really matter, but if we create a new class inside and we call it, let's say alerts, because that's what I had in the code before, alerts view component, CS. No, please later. So now I'm pretty free to name my class any name that I want, but if I don't call it view component at the end, it won't be able to automatically look up the view for it for me. So then I have to specify it every time. And the other thing that I told you is inconsistent is that it requires to find the view. It requires a folder that's called components instead of view components. So they should really make up their mind and name everything either component or view component. But first we will add a folder called shared, which is another convention in the MVC framework. If you're looking for views, you either look in the views home index or you look into views shared and anything for the index view in this case. And we add another folder, which will be called components. This one should go inside of the shared folder. But does it? No, it doesn't. Okay, let's try again. New, no. Oh, I made it a file, a folder. Folder, shared, folder, components, and then finally folder home alert. And so here we can finally put the view for our small component, and by default, it doesn't look for index HTML, it looks for default CSHTML. So let's call it default CSHTML. And inside of that, on the example, we have a table, which is somewhere here. Is there a question? Okay. But we will just render some number, I guess, because we don't have time to go through all the machinery behind it and the actual floor monitor class that's in the system. But you can see that on the GitHub because I will be uploading all the code, and it has like a lot of commits that go sequentially, where you can see the whole development. So, well, let's do just E to make it bold, to make it awesome. And here we can just go with number 10. But that's what you need in your components, number 10. Okay, let's make it 42, so super cool. And now hopefully if we go to the index, we can use very awesome and simple syntax, which I think is add component dot invoke async. Yeah, we still need to implement the controller for it.
Even if the class doesn't work, or the class for the component isn't It's not there. You can create like a multi component.
No, we didn't create the controller yet. So
which is in the folder components, right?
yeah, exactly. That's where it goes.
So this one is
We didn't implement it yet. But we use this component keyword, and by the way, it should start like this. It's await because it's async again, but now in the view. And then you need the syntax with the add symbol and the parenthesis to actually tell the Razor engine not to try to render it and so on. So it's very simple syntax. And now we have generic call of the actual type of the component. So it will be alerts view component. And here we could like pass parameters to it. Oh, actually, it should be inside of a new anonymous object. This one is really not very nice with the syntax. So for all the great work they did with all the tag helpers and making this awesome and look like the real HTML, this is how it looked like before with the HTML helpers and how you created forms and so on. So this is not very nice syntax, but hopefully we will get some helper for that as well, or some different syntax, some special keyword or something. But well, it does its job. So I will just remove this parameter here because we don't provide any. And then we go to the, save this one. And maybe I will just specify the whole namespace. So that will be hands-on components alert view component also. And now we will do namespace components is public class alert view component, which derives from view component. And we need to include this. And I remember that it had like a really weird number that weird namespace that doesn't go with this naming. And I think it was, okay, we'll just look it up in the code. Okay, maybe it will work. Yeah, we just need to use the Microsoft ASP NET Core MVC here. So we add the using. The trick that I just did is that you go to the underline stuff and you press Control and dot. It will expand the small menu, and then you can add the using because it knows what you want to probably do. And this is like a small controller. We have only one method to implement, and that will be something that returns view component result. And the method, it's actually a task view component result because this is async. And here we can just return view. Do it. Just need to include the system threading tasks as well. What's your problem? Oh, try to build it and we will see. View components to what? I don't know, it's broken. To go like this, so, well, maybe we need some view model. So let's edit a view model. This will be model of strength. And this one will get 42. Standard model. You can put in result. Well, it should work, but I'm doing something wrong. Okay, why don't we just return this? Oh, I know. We need to return a task. This one is not included again.
What is this task?
This one is asynchronous, and so it should return the result wrapped in the task class, which is like a promise in JavaScript. So it's the same concept, and this one just enables us to create a new task result from an existing value without, doing all the storing of the content and so on. So without doing any asynchronous work, we can return a task that is already completed. But for some reason it doesn't work and I'm doing something wrong. Well, anyways, I don't know. This is yes. 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 Save. Right. Okay, so this will be the result, and this will do hack. Then we can await this task, and we will return the result. Okay, this works. So because this is async and we are not doing any async work, and this view doesn't really expect any other value than the actual value that we want to return, so I'm probably doing something wrong. But at the moment, I could fool it by just, trying to do some like async work, but awaiting it at the same time and then just returning the results. So it's kind of a hack, but it works. Hopefully. Let's start it again. And and see if it renders anything on our awesome app. Maybe hard refresh. And it renders awesome error. View. Okay. What am I doing wrong? Because now it thinks that I want to render the view that's named 42, which I don't. Oh, finally. So this is the component that we render now. Very impressive. But the problem here is that the view, you can specify the name of the view that you want to render, which you do as a string. So now here we started passing the string. And so we said, oh, okay, that's the name of the view. So I will just try to render 42.cshtml instead of the actual result. And so by just casting it to object, it didn't see that it's string again anymore. And then we were able to render the actual component in this default view where we just get the string and then we just put it on the screen. But if you look at the code that I will put on the repo, we actually built like a table from the results that we get from database. And we could take this alerts table and put it on different pages, or it could be like news or the face of the current user and so on. So you just have a simple small controller that you can reuse throughout the app. Cool.
Maybe if you can pick something like last topic for 15 minutes and then just like save last 15 minutes for some discussion and questions, because we definitely won't be able to go through all of it.
Okay. So, well, the last topic that I had prepared in the code is the web API. So maybe we can just start to do some try to do some simplified example, not the whole chart that is in the presentation. This one, because this should have been originally powered by API, but maybe we can just try it and see how far we can get in the 15 minutes. So for the web API, as I already said before, the controllers for the MVC and the controllers for the web API are now the same, derived from the same class. So to add an API controller, we don't need to do anything special. We can put it in a special folder, but we don't need to. We can just create a new class like API controller, or that would result in a weird URL. So let's go with temperature controller that I had in the examples. Yes, and here again we do namespace HandsOn controller. This will be public comments. We derive from controller. As we always do, we do the using. Just using, please. Let's see. Import it, and then we go with public I action result, and we call it get because we will be doing only the get request or get type of request. We don't provide any parameters, but we could provide as many parameters here as we want, and then we can specify them in the URL as the classical, URL route definition of parameters. And here we can return some JSON object. Hopefully, which will be, I don't know, 10. UI. Compilation failed. Okay, this one should be called controllers. That's why it doesn't work. And we are still running, so that's the other reason why it doesn't work. And so now to reach this controller, we need to go to localhost.temperature get. So this is not the normal route that we expect, right? So we can configure the route here in place, or we can add a default route, but this is another option how we can configure the routes directly on the controllers. So we will go with route, and we say that the template for this route will be /API. That way we put it at the /API in the URL, and then we just say in the brackets controller, which means replace this with the actual name of the controller. So in this case, it will be temperature. And all we need to do here to just make this respond to HTTP GET is just going with HTTP GET. Okay, I'm still running. So let's try it again and see if it works. Okay, it doesn't respond to this route anymore, but we should be able to go here and get the same result. So now we have fully functioning API that returns stuff. Yeah, exactly. But, well, we can return a new object from here, so we can just say values is new array of something like 1, 2, and 3. And if we rebuild, and we should get the object back. Now, one small problem is that in C# we use the capital letters on the start of the name of the property and objects and so on. But in JSON, you usually see this with small v on the start. And that could be a problem if you interop between, .NET developer on the backend side and the JavaScript developer on the client side. And so in the final release of the ASP NET, this will be automatically configured. So you will get small v on the start of the name of the properties. But at this moment, you can do the same thing yourself just by going to your packages, including Newtons of JSON, which is very popular library for C# to handle JSON stuff, all JSON stuff, basically. We can save that, try to do restore. But I think I already have it in my cache. Okay, and now we can configure the MVC to actually use it, which you can do via really simple syntax. And it will be add JSON options, and here it comes. You start with options and lambda, and then it's options.serializer settings.contract resolver. And you assign a new instance of camel case. I told you it's easy. I need to do the using first to get the IntelliSense because I don't really want to type the whole name of the class. So that would be Newton self-JSON serialization. And this is the name of the class that you use. Easy. Easy peasy like that. But well, you should use really descriptive names, so this is one of them. And so we can close this one. We can do the, oh, sorry, just run. And let's see if it works when we reload our app, but I don't know where I put it. Oh, here it is. And so now we have values with small v, so everybody's happy on both sides. We can do our thing and you can do your thing. And it also works when you post the data in, so it automatically transforms all the stuff. But in the release version, this will be done automatically for you, so the camel case will be the default, not the Pascal case. Okay, well, how much time do we have?
So we can spend, we have about 20 minutes left, and we can spend it with a discussion. So
Okay, so should we wrap up?
I think we should.
Okay, cool. Well, there's so much stuff that I didn't have a chance to show you. So before we go to the questions, if there are any, if you found this at least a bit interesting, then here are the sources that I used, mostly the Pluralsight courses, especially the one by Roland Guit, which is really awesome sources of information. There is also the documentation on the docs ASP.NET/en/latest. There is a GitHub repo where everything is, there is all the code, they accept pull requests if you want to do fixes. So the whole project is open source. And there is also ASP.NET/announcements, which you can watch on GitHub to get the latest news about what changed and so on. And if you ever go to the /ASP.NET and go through the repositories, make sure you go inside of the issues and read some of the discussions, because some of them are really great and put great insight on how the ASP NET Core works, why it works this way, and what they will fix and what they won't fix, and so on. The stuff that I didn't cover at all is that we actually use NPM to manage server-side packages as well. You can do automation with Power, with other task runners like Gulp. Oh, sorry. Probably just killed the people on the internet. And this gives you the full power that you are probably used to if you are a web developer for some time, web developer outside of the ASP.NET world. So you can do all the automation, link it in your Visual Studio, do post-build steps, do pre-release steps, and so on. Everything works somehow. And there is a lot of sources for configuration, a lot of stuff that you can customize. Basically, everything can be replaced. Everything can be done your way, and so on. So it's a very awesome framework. Everything is modular. And I think you will greatly benefit from learning it. Cool. So I think I'm done.
Yeah, actually, maybe just to mention all of the
questions.
Just one thing. All of the results of your repo, which you prepared up front, will be uploaded to the CN GitHub, so you can actually see the version where we get until now versus the version which actually Jakub prepared up front, which all of the stuff which you just mentioned will be finalized there, so you can actually have a look at it.
Yeah, I tried to do like small comments with description of what happens and how we will go through it during this presentation, and then I actually followed this code. So it should be pretty much similar to what you saw.
So questions to the,
or suggestions?
Some technical, yeah, go ahead.
What about, like, let's say that I developed like an API with ASP Core and wanted to put it like on production? Is there like any solution for personal users, like workflow or something?
Sorry, what was the last thing?
Like, like workflow or something, so I can use it like for personal users.
Well, you can get Azure subscription for free, where you can create as many applications as you want, I think. I don't think it's much limited. Maybe you need some credit. I don't really know. I get like 130 euros per month for testing and so on. And if you want to try it, then you can as well. But I think there are some free plans that you can use, or you can find another host where you can like host Linux for free, I guess, and then you can deploy to that.
I mean, it's just something affordable. It doesn't have to be free, but like just something.
Yeah, in that case, you will probably be in the best place with Azure because you get support from Visual Studio. They have like the whole chain is stable, and you can use it, and it's tested because everybody uses that. Yeah.
May I ask, have you deployed it all on Azure already? And if so, did you use the websites or that version that you use?
This one I didn't deploy, but if you deploy this to Azure, it uses the web applications, the thing that hosts the application for you, not the VMs for storing it.
And will it create a web role? Can you create a web role with this already, or only the web application or websites or what's called?
I'm not that familiar with Azure, but there are two types of deployment. Usually the one where you just deploy the app, it creates the endpoint for you and you can do everything. You can connect it to your SQL database that you have in Azure that you can limit it. And then you have the other thing with the VMs where you actually do it for yourself. So this one does the first one. I think it's called web application.
Yeah.
We can have a look on that if you want. We can try to deploy it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have another question. You mentioned for the non-Windows operating systems. It's like, yeah, it's running there, but what about the database?
What about what?
Database?
Database?
Yeah.
The MS SQL server was ported to Linux, but you don't need that. You can connect to Mongo. You can use different database provider. You have Entity Framework that can link to, I think, Progress SQL, if it's called like that. I don't know. It can connect to Oracle, I think. At least.
So one of the last indeeds which we had on YouTube was actually about MongoDB to database different applications.
Yeah, but that was on Core. So I think you can use Mongo on Core.
Yeah, good.
Plus, you don't have to use this with the core, you can use it with the full framework. You can run it on the Mono board on Linux. But this one is like more modern and more portable, and you can deploy it to multiple platforms, like you have the Raspberry Pi. So you can deploy this to Linux running on Raspberry Pi. You can deploy this to Windows IoT running on Raspberry Pi and so on. So it's very lightweight and the possibilities are endless. Any other questions? You look curious. Okay.
Just itchy nose.
So no questions.
Not that one.
In that case, thank you.
Just again, thank you, Jakob. Just maybe a little bit different kind of questions. So, how did you like the presentation? We definitely would like to receive some feedback if you didn't already put it in the paper. Maybe just definitely feedback. And since like was the first .NET topic this year, we would like to maybe know which kind of .NET topic you would like, and which kind of other than .NET topic you would like maybe next time. We would just don't hesitate to just shoot any kind of things which you are personally interested in to be like a good feedback for. I'm not sure, like, what you guys, for example, you are generally interested in, like, these technologies. So just generally, like, this was like, other than JavaScript world, so just, yeah, so this was like ASP.NET as experience, you guys.
Did you say other than ASP or?
Well, we can just shoot any. You just
I would prefer some more stuff about ASP as I'm good.
This one or the full one?
Sorry, what?
The core, this one or the full one?
Core, yeah.
Okay.
yeah. So next time probably we'll get back to the like more like a front-end world, but not related to .NET. It will be very likely about now for the first time like functional programming. We will talk maybe a little bit about Elm. Not sure whether you heard about it already. It's something similar to HandsOn. And the first time we will do a little bit hands-on experience, and second, I'm not sure when, but we already asked the creator of Elm, Mr. Chapeki, I don't know right how to like what was his name, but actually maybe the creator of Elm is going to come. I'm not sure right now when to actually have a hands-on session together with him as well. So yeah, that's what is right now cooking, and just in case you would like to have more questions, more informal, we can either stay for a minute here, or we might some of us go for a beer, and if you are not invited to join us.
Yeah, come for beer.
Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jakub.
Thanks.